Hi guys, it's Bill from Minnesota XMR. Well, last year at this time I installed the Dalton clutch kit. Well, being nobody sends me anything for free, I put some money away over to summer and winter and decided to go with a QSC primary. I've been doing a lot of research and they say the secondary is just fine the way it is, unless you get into some major tire sizes, 32s, 34s, what have you. So I'm going to leave that guy alone, but I'm sure you've seen plenty of videos on how to take off your clutch cover, and truly if you can't figure that out, you shouldn't probably be doing this anyways. But guys have been having problems with getting off. I see the difficulty of getting off the primary, especially the back plate. The front plate's just a big bolt, no big deal. But what I did was I ran a bolt in best I could, and I just let it sit and gave it a tap, and out it came. I know there's water tricks and I don't know, guys come up with a lot of different things, but it's just pressed on there, and if you give it a little time, the pressure will take care of itself. Just be a little patient with it. Like I said, I do have my secondary. I did a Dalton clutch kit, and I was instructed that I needed to get the secondary spring out of there because the QSC primary won't work correctly if I leave that one in there. I've seen guys that do, but again, I got 30-inch tires. I got my secondary off. See, everything is put in there. I'll clean this up real good. I do have some anti-seize on it from when I had on last time. And I'll do that again after I clean everything up. You can see the splines and how they got to be lined up on the splines, of course, on the shaft. And then when you put the secondary back on, you need to go behind here with a screwdriver or a long drift or something, and it's got a preload on it, the secondary spring, and you can see I pulled the Dalton clutch kit spring out of it. The stock is on the right, and you can see there is a difference, almost another full half a turn, where the end of the spring goes into both sides here. I was looking at my maintenance manual, and the 570 and the 650 don't have this kind of hook spring preload, but I'm going to do what QSC told me to and put the stock one back in. Alright, got the secondary off. You can see down in there there's a hole that your secondary spring will go into, and then your helix as a hole. You can see how that will line up on your shaft, and this will come down and put this in, and then this whole thing will slide on to make sure this is engaged. And once you get it up in there, gonna have to turn this piece. This is where I say you gotta hook something in back, a long drift or a screwdriver, what have you, and then the secondary will be turned a little bit clockwise, where the back part would be turned counterclockwise, so that the helix doesn't get caught here. If it gets caught here, you're going to damage something. It needs to go down into the slot, so when this comes out, it will catch that. I don't have this pulled up here, but it will fall down into the groove just like that. And sure indicator, if you have this up here and it's caught, when you put your bolt in to spread your sleeves, the bolt will just get jammed and this won't do anything. But be very careful, because you can wreck something. This is just an aluminum alloy that will not take a whole lot of pressure, I would imagine, if it's stressed in any way. So heads up on that. And of course, before you put your bolt in, make sure you got blue Loctite. Put blue Loctite on it. If you use the red, trust me, I've been a mechanic for over 40 years now. You don't want to mess with the red. If you want to not take something out, put the red in. But the blue will do for this kind of application. All right, I don't know if you can see this, but this is the back of the secondary, and you can see how the helix is matched up with the plate. That's why you got to turn the helix a little bit, because you'll bump up right against the back sheath here, and you'll hit it and it will just tighten up. One thing you can check though, I had this off before, that where those splines on your shaft are, you can make sure that this is connected. I put it in low gear, and if you turn this a little bit, you can see that it is engaged. The whole four-wheeler moves. So you know that your clutch is on the spline of your shaft. I spared you the grunt and groaning I did starting a bolt, but now I can get a screwdriver behind there, turn it a little bit, and walk that on. So just put a screwdriver behind there. You can feel a little tension. Get around the inside part of the helix, and you can feel that you're moving the spring a little bit. And then you can walk your bolt, and the helix will go inside that back sheath. In case no one's told you, they'll tell you in the maintenance manual that you never, ever, ever use this bolt twice. So what you're doing is you're putting 20 foot-pounds on it, which is nothing, but then you're completely rotating it 180 degrees. What the torque is at the end, I suppose you could check it, but you're stretching that bolt, and you just don't want to use the stretch bolt twice. I've seen it before on different engine mounts on aircraft and like head bolts on particular cars and trucks, what have you, that you get to where you're stretching the bolt and you never want to reuse that. So keep that in mind. They'll all tell you that. The maintenance manual will tell you that. The different videos you see, even guys, well, I guess you're seeing a video right now, not to do that. So always replace that one. The primary, that's no big deal. And actually the QSC clutch that I'm putting in comes with a new bolt, and that gets torqued down to 75. The maintenance manual for the stock one, I think it was 89, which is quite a bit more than what you are called for the QSC. So we'll get to that in a minute. All right, well, this is what I did. You can see I went 180. I fought with it for a little bit, but I just cut a small piece of wood and jammed it up against the back frame. It held it just fine. And just a chunk of wood. And as you can see, I got 180 out. So, like I said, I have no idea what the torque is. And the blue Loctite, once it gets compressed in a thread, it likes to stay there. So checking and rechecking and blah blah blah, how these guys, they keep wanting to retorque it, I have to question that a little bit. If you mark this thing where it's supposed to be, which I'm going to do and put it up here, and this will turn a little bit once you put your belt on, but after you get your belt on, you mark this. There's no need to go back and retorque it. Check it every now and again, you know, when you're cleaning out your cover, but to try to torque it or check the torque, leave it alone. I wanted to show you this. I saw a lot of different videos that will show people installing these things, but really never did much more of an explanation to it. Well, I went and weighed them, and got 12.4 on the stock and 9.2 on the QSC. That's a difference of 3.2 pounds. That's a lot. You can see the difference in the shafts. The belt will ride lower, which give you a lot more back, a lot more front end, a lot more torque. You can see the difference in how this is all constructed. This is just beautiful. Those guys do an incredible job. A lot of differences. I always do my research, and I found that Mud Digger Motorsports over in Wisconsin, I'll leave a link to theirs in the description of the video, but I looked and I talked to Ryan over there, and they're more than happy to answer the phone or leave you a text, and they got it to me right away. And including shipping, it was the best deal I could find. You know, the guys up in Canada will say $1,000. Oh my God. But anyways, it's a nice piece of machining. And when you put this on, you don't have to fight with the spring compressing it, because the spring is already internal. Just wanted to show you the differences. Again, blue Loctite. give it a nice dose, but you don't have to overdo it. Not red. You don't want to fight with the red. Compared to the other one, you're pushing on this, what have you. All the spring is inside. Much easier. Do it. Guys from Dirt Tracks, they're endorsing this this new belt, the Ultimax. It's got a 3-year warranty. I thought I gave it a shot. It's supposed to be a pretty good belt. Alright, I got it all put together. I got this one torqued, I got this one torqued here. I'm gonna mark it. And this did rotate just a little bit, the internal part, because now the sheaves have the width of the belt in there, and that will make it move. I mean, well, pivot here. So, they're all marked. And mark this one a little bit too if I can, but alright, we're all set to start up here. One thing I got to show you on these clutches, this QSC will send this to you, but I don't know if this is a new thing they're doing or this has always been out there, but that bearing needs to be broke in a little bit. So you lock your brakes, put it in high, and just let it idle for 3 or 4 minutes. And that'll loosen up that bearing, because before I showed you that it was on there pretty tight. But we'll fire it up and see what happens here. Let it break in for the 3 or 4 minutes. Actually a lot longer than that. It's like QSC requested. Ran it up and down the street a couple times. Streets were kind of snowy, so I really didn't see what kind of snap it had. But true test, we're going to be going on a winter ride here in the next couple weeks, and I'll put it through its spaces then. But right now I'm going to check the torque, not retorque, but check the torque on primary. Like I said, I'm leave the secondary alone. That didn't move at all. But there is a difference. The way I look at it is checking a torque and retorquing. If you're going to retorque it, you would actually loosen it up and then bring it back to, in this case, 75 foot-pounds. If I put the wrench on here and it moves significantly, what I would do is I would remove it, clean your bolt all up and get all the blue Loctite off it, and then reapply your blue Loctite and do it again. But if it doesn't move, I'll check it after a few rides and go from there. But to retorque it, that's a little bit different than to check the torque. And the way this one slides on, it's a bit of a tapered shaft, and you want to seat it in there real well, and I showed you that previous. Alright, struggled with the cover a little bit, but no big deal. So put the tail inside first and it'll drop down. You've heard this before, but I'm going to tell you again. When you put the cover on, always just put a little bit of anti-seize on it. Not a whole lot, just enough. You've got 13 of them, and when you crank these down, I shouldn't even use the word crank. When you tighten these up, you've got a rubber bushing here, and you're going through a rubber gasket. You don't need to crank them down. The plastic has the insert in it, and you can pull them out real easy. So just start them all and then kind of go in a cross pattern, but you don't have to reef on these things. You just put them in nice and easy, and make sure your seal is right, you know, that it didn't get out of position or anything. But it's a piece of cake. Just start them so it holds into place, and then go in a cross pattern. You'll be just fine. Alright, I'm not going to bore you with any more of this, because this is really the simple part of the whole task here. But again, don't crank down on them. Just put a little bit of anti-seize on it. I got some Permatex I use for just about anything, and you'll be just fine when you want to take it off. You don't want to be pulling out any of the inserts. You got to do this, you know, out on a trail someplace. So we'll start it up here in a minute after I get this all in place. We'll be back. All right, that'll do it. All installed. Got all of our screws in.